It's the Final Word Cricket Podcast, daily preview for Leeds. Adam Collins, Bharat Sundaresan with me. Geoff's at the Women's Ashes, so we'll be doing a daily on that later tonight. So it'll be 2 in the feed before we get cracking here tomorrow. We've got the players training behind us here, Baz. We've been at all the pre-game stuff today, press conferences and spirit of cricket. And we've pretty much said all we can possibly say on the Bairstow stumping before it'll become completely obnoxious. But was there anything from the captains today when they were inevitably probed about it?
Some of the shortest answers I've ever seen in a press conference came from Pat Cummins. Yes, no, I'll think about it. I'll tell you later. Maybe you ask me later. And there was one series. There was, I think, a 3-4 minute period during Pat Cummins' press conference where the English journalists in particular were sat on one side and the mic was passed from one row to the other. And every question was about that. Oh, Pat, if you had your chance again, would you reconsider it? No. The next question, do you think it falls into the spirit of cricket? Well, I don't know. And then it was bizarre. And
that's a great way to shut a story down. I mean, from his perspective, knowing that if he, all he can do in that situation is add to the media cycle. And by taking some oxygen out of it, I'm sure there'll still be yarns written about 2018 and sandpaper. And, I guess that's the news desks and others who are pushing those sort of stories out there at this late juncture. But I think most of it's gone. However, where we're standing here in the Western Terrace, it'll be fiery tomorrow. There's extra security that's been ordered, according to Pete Lawler in the paper yesterday. And the sense is that they're aware of that. But I don't know, my impression is that sitting up here for much of the 2019 Test match with my camera, the people in the Western Terrace, they'll be fiery, but they know cricket here. Yorkshire is a cricket hub, big time, cricket proud area, and I think once we get into the meat and drink of the cricket itself, that a lot of it will subside. That is to say, if we were at Edgbaston this week, I think it'd be a more hostile environment. Maybe I'm misreading that, but I feel like this is where it's more likely to be loud and crazy and wild and all the rest of it, but the cricket will be the primary attention.
Unless, of course, there is a stumping in the first session tomorrow.
I hope Kerry does try, or even indeed Bairstow tries to throw the stumps down early on.
Look, there will be a few shies. I'm sure with Stuart Broad involved in this Test match, I'm sure he will play it up. But I think what has not surprised me, but because it's gone so feral, what we saw from the MCC members.
There's your citizenship right there. It's gone feral. It's gone feral, mate.
Yeah. So, I've started using a lot of Aussie expressions these days, but mostly inadvertently. It comes from nowhere, subconsciously. I've started looking in. Hey, and I was sledged as well. Don't forget, by a British cop. I don't know whether I told you this story.
Tell it now.
So I've rented a car because I couldn't afford to stay in Leeds. I'm staying somewhere in Bradford, so I rented a car. I thought it was automatic. It turned out to be manual. And I'd driven a manual car 15 years of my life, but I thought it'll be fine, muscle memory and all that. But I start driving and I go so, and then
a few kangaroo hops.
Yeah, and peak hour traffic is around 4:30 p.m. So there's a lot of traffic, and I keep going but somehow move, and then I have to get onto the motorway. And as I'm trying to get on the motorway, the car stops, and there are all these trucks coming from everywhere. And there was a cop car, so I was like, what do I do now? I was in a very Johnny Bairstow position. I was out of screens. What's happened? I had the same expression. So what I did was I luckily managed to just pull to the curb, to the side of the road, and the cop car obviously stopped in front of me, lights flashing, all of that. But as soon as he got out, I had a big smile. I was just waving at him. So he came up to me and he said, "Man, are you all right?" I said, yeah. What's happening? I said, nah, manual car, man. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, are you sure you know what you're doing? I said, yes, man, I know. All right, cool. Can I just check your driving license? He's like, oh, Australians cheating at the cricket, cheating here. Same old Aussies always cheating. I'm like, mate, can you not sledge me now? I'm under extreme duress. I have to get
vulnerable.
back. I know. I need to get back onto that motorway. I have no idea what I'm doing. No, it's gone. It's spread around. Prime ministers are having a say, and at some point, I thought maybe one of the English cricketers would have said, I think Joe Root handled it the best, but neither Stokes or Brendan McCullum have come and said, let's move on. Let's move on with the cricket. Instead, they've just come and said, support England and, be noisy. And they've not allowed it to even simmer, boil down, because it's been, they've been adding, I wouldn't say fuel to the fire, but they've constantly spoken about how, Brendan McCullum saying, Australia will live to regret this and all that.
We're not going to have a beer with them.
I know. I mean, it's a bit over a stumping. Let's move on.
And the other bit here was Cummins was asked about whether he, whether he would withdraw it and whether he'd be shushing.
Yeah,
and he's like, I don't care. I'm not here.
That's not why I play cricket.
I don't play cricket because of whether I'm getting booed at or shushed at.
Exactly,
it's neither here nor there. Anyway, we should be talking about the cricket as well. The 22 yards in the middle behind us here. It looks green, but let's not get too deeply invested in that. The fact that England have reconfigured their side to play an extra bowler, if they thought it was an old-fashioned Greentop, I doubt they'd be playing an extra bowler. So they've lengthened their, well, in a way they've lengthened their tail. I don't quite see it that way with Moeen Ali now at 7 rather than 8 and Chris Wokes at 8. That feels like not a bad balance in terms of their group. And then they bring Mark Wood in for extra airspeed. And if the pitch does go dead here, and it did last year, remember Jack Leach took 10 wickets on a surface that became increasingly dead after a couple of days. A lot of runs scored here in the first innings that he came into his own, the spinner. It might be that Wood in the short pitch strategy could be a big factor. I'm slightly sad that Josh Tongue doesn't get another chance, though. I thought they'd go back-to-back with him.
Yeah.
Tongue in concert with Wood bowling quickly could have been really exciting.
I think it would have come down to Tongue versus Robinson, right? And Robinson, look, he's still taken wickets in this series. He's been looked flat at times, but then there have been some spells where he's made things happen. And I think also what would have gone into their thinking is now they're talking about the teams being at war, right? You need a pantomime villain in Ollie Robinson. You already have Stuart Broad.
Yeah.
I think that might have gone into their discussion because it's very unfair on Josh Tongue. He was so good. He troubled the openers. David Warner, he set him up beautifully in both innings and got him out. He got Usman Khawaja out. He had Steve Smith in trouble for briefly before Steve Smith went on and made that 100. So it is a little unfair, but I think they need a spinner here. And I was watching Moeen Ali in the nets today. There was this big focus on Moeen Ali, Brendan McCullum, Marcus Trescott, Jeetan Patel, all constantly checking in with each other on whether Moeen Ali is looking good. Look, the last test match he played at Edgbaston, he did it on the back of 2 training sessions. So he's had a better hit with the red ball. I didn't see him bowl much because I don't think he would want to bowl too much and trouble that finger too much. So we will see him bowl, I don't know how many overs. It depends on what Ben Stokes wants from him. But again, we've seen in Headingley in the past as well. In England they say always look up, but especially at this venue where the pitch, it can be quick or quicker than some of the other pitches like we expect this one to be, but it also means a lot of runs get scored. They have odd shaped boundaries here as well, pretty short straight boundaries. That was a boundary where Ben Stokes hit the famous 4, didn't he? I can still picture Nathan Lyon going down right there.
And the cut shot came to the boundary we're recording from here as well.
Yeah, that's right. And
cuts away for 4.
That's what I'm saying. And
the Ashes are alive because of one man, Benjamin Stokes.
Was the reverse sweep here as well?
The reverse sweep this way too.
The reverse sweep here as well. It's going to be interesting pitch, and already the announcement that Mark Wood is back had an impact on how the Aussies were going about their training, because the last 2 tests they started training for Wood as soon as the team was announced. It's we don't need to face a lot of short pitch bowling, not the quick stuff anyway, and he will have a say. He was so impressive in that Ashes, like you said earlier. Now with the Australians, I'm going to stick my neck out here.
Well, let's just go through this. So the Aussies, we know the main decision on paper at least is Boland, Hazelwood. We know that the top 5 set and forget. We know Alex Carey's playing. By the way, a nice little contribution to the discourse from Travis Head on a podcast yesterday, saying that Bairstow was talking about throwing the stumps down when he was loitering out of his crease on day 1 of the test last week. I digress. The number 6 spot though, you've been reading tea leaves.
I have. First time ever, and since Cam Green came into the test side, he hasn't come to the ground on the eve of a test match, and obviously he hasn't batted. He's one of those, he likes to bat like Manas Labuschagne, and Steve Smith didn't bat here. This is 100th test, of course, tomorrow. But Steve Smith didn't bat today, but he had a long net yesterday. But Cam Green likes to do that. He wasn't here. He didn't bowl yesterday. Nobody bowled, but he did bat for quite a while yesterday. But Mitchell Marsh was in focus. There was a lot of chat being had with him one-on-one. Michael Divinetto had a private session with him where you could just look at it and say, it's just reserve player, they're just keeping him ready. But it looked like it was more than that. There were handshakes between Michael Divinetto and Mitchell Marsh before and after the training session. And the documentary makers, there's a documentary being made, were focusing a lot on Mitchell Marsh as well.
Really?
And then he was taking...
That's a really strong sign.
It is, isn't it? Is it? And then I also saw him take catches in not a gully, but like a 3rd, 4th slip position, not just for the right-hander, but for the left-hander. So it wasn't just your routine catching session. But maybe I'm reading a lot into it. Maybe I'm not. We'll find
when
out
he marked
tomorrow.
his run-up out at Edgbaston, and we all thought it was game on, and that was just some stunt or something like that. They took an enormous amount of joy in because of course the media is the enemy, of course. Oh, look at you, you fell for... no, if it is Marsh tomorrow, that will be interesting. His most recent test match was against England at the Oval in similar conditions to this. It wasn't a warm week, or at least the first couple of days. It was quite chilly at the Oval, and it's not going to be warm here either. There are forecast showers pretty much throughout. One day that's quite heavy. Let's hope that most of them happen at night, but I don't think it's going to be a belter of a week or anything quite like that. What are we missing? Steve Smith's 100th test. You touched on it before. This is the test Test match that he missed in the series in 2019 with concussion, but did play a Test here all the way back in 2010 as a little boy with those chubby cheeks.
I know, chubby cheeks or leggy he was back then. Batted at number 8, made 77.
He bowled leg spin, did he, Smith?
He did?
Really?
Did he? I mean, a bit of leg spin.
Started his career as a leg spinner.
He's also blonde, you know.
Wow.
Blonde
tips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was he? But on Steve Smith, don't you think he was...
Told jokes, didn't he?
He was more blonde when he came into the picture than he is now. I don't know. His hair doesn't look as blonde anymore. I don't know why.
It was in fashion.
Maybe he wasn't a natural blonde. We'll know. We might never know.
So 100 Test matches averaging 60. It's a pretty big old sample size. And what a record against England last week.
Incredible.
Hitting his 12th Ashes century. His, I think, 7th in England to perform. Like, a lot of players have had bumper 100 Tests. Famously, Ricky Ponting, twin centuries, for example. Smith would just relish that chance to move to Test ton 33. He's always up for it.
David won a double 100, didn't he? I mean, just earlier this year, or late last year. So he was the last one to play 100 Tests. Nathan Lyon's 100 Tests didn't go his way, but it went my way because I wrote a book about it. Sorry, Nathan. But yeah, look, he looks hungry. He looked hungry. I called the 100, didn't I? I told you, Adam, before the loss, he's going to make 100. He had the look in his eye. And just...
You called the green 100 for 6 Tests in a row as well.
That is true, but it didn't happen, did it? But it eventually
got
did.
there in the end, and underbud.
He got closer and closer and closer, but yeah. But with Steve Smith, I mean, he spoke to us after the Lord's Test, and I asked him about whether he started thinking about his legacy already. You know, when you hit like milestones like 100 Tests, you start thinking about how will I be remembered? But I don't think he's in that space yet. Andrew Ramsey asked him if he's going to eat an extra bar of chocolate, because that's what he does when he makes 100, doesn't he? So now that he's got to 100 Tests, and he thought about it and did the Steve Smith shuffle and said, maybe I will, But I am a little worried about another Australian batter. You spoke about Travis Head. The mush is gone. The mush is gone. We were on the same train.
Really?
We were on the same train from London to Leeds, which also tells you, if you're wondering why was he on a train, because the Australian players have been given the license. You can travel however you want, which also tells you, while if you are watching this in Australia, you think the whole of England is out to get the Australians. It's not that bad. I mean, it's not that Travis Head and can travel with his wife and his little daughter in a train and without anyone bothering him, because nobody bothered him. But as we got off the train, like he saw me and he started like talking to me. All I noticed was no mustache, and then he introduced me to his wife. I said, yes, this, and he was like, Bharat's the one. Bharat's like really on about my mustache all the time. And I said, yeah, because he averages like, I think 192 or something with the mustache as compared to without the mustache.
How quickly can it grow up back?
He said 2 days. I asked him.
Okay.
I said the stubble's coming back.
Shoot.
So what Pat Cummins needs to do is win the toss and field, so that Travis Head is not batting tomorrow. Like, he needs to make sure. Yeah.
I'm sure England will win the toss and field, because
that's how it works.
That's how it works. And I think that was an aberration at Edgbaston a couple of weeks ago. Have we ticked every box here? I think we probably have. Anything else happening? Nisa might play. Nisa won't play.
Nisa won't play.
Nisa won't play. Not
Spirit
here.
of Cricket? Do we talk about Spirit of Cricket? What do you think? Okay, fine.
For Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. You know, Geoff was there last night doing shuffleboarding.
Oh, really?
I don't even know what shuffleboarding is really, but Geoff was there.
Sounds like something Geoff Lemon would do.
One of the many things you can do at London and Stratford City, Westfield. I keep getting it the wrong way around at the moment. Something about, anyway, when things get in your head, we'll be talking about them throughout the course of the week. Geoff will be joining me tomorrow for the dailies. Thank you, Baz, for jumping in for the preview. It promises to be a week that everybody is watching. Australia the chance to win the Ashes in England in straight sets. I'd watch. See ya.